Well, I'm sure that some would consider this to be the worst thing you could ever do is to, you know, videotape while you're trying to drive. But as long as I keep my eyes on the road, sometimes it's weird how I honestly have the best thoughts and ideas while I drive, and to be able to share them and just let them out, I think is a therapeutic thing. So Friday we looked at Are You Ready to Collide? We talked about the church being representing yellow, the family representing red. Talked about the fact, are we ready to get those two real influences, spiritual influences, spiritual things that are just so key to, particularly the lives of students, but I think all of us in general. Are we ready for those things to collide? And I think, as I saw from a lot of you and had emails and responses over the weekend, it is a thing that is really hitting a lot of people. But I think before we can talk about the present, or before we can really look to the future, we have to, we got to understand the past. And the past is very different. I honestly think that there was a point in time in the church where actually the collision was taking place. It really was taking place. Where the family was actually living out their faith, and it probably looked very different than it does now. But they were living out their faith in community. They were living out their faith as a family. They were living out their faith within a tribe. Somewhere along the line, that stopped, and the church became very segregated. And I mean, that's just the way it is now, and we have to live within the reality of that. I got to admit, sometimes as a pastor, it's frustrating when you walk into a church and children under the ages of 6, you go to that room. Children who in public school, you go there. Junior high, you go there. Senior high, you go there. Young adults, you go there. Young marrieds, you go there. Young marrieds with kids, you go there. Those who want to be married, you go there. It just goes on and on and on. And we do a great job as a church is really fragmenting and separating us as individuals, but primarily I think the family. And the family was always designed to be the primary spiritual influence. And so what happened somewhere along the line in terms of youth ministry, 50 years ago, this brilliant idea, or actually I think it was even longer than that, probably about 100 years ago, this guy came up with this phrase called adolescence. And that just started the ball rolling, because all of a sudden there was this, it used to be childhood and adulthood, and then you had this in-between time, tweeny time, teen time, and, Christian community figured out they need to figure something to do with these kids. And what happened was a lot of parachurch organizations were established, and organizations like Young Life and Youth for Christ were created. And then churches saw those parachurch organizations that were really, really, I think, designed to meet the kids that weren't already connected. And these churches saw that and they're like, oh man, we got to jump on this bandwagon. And so let's create programs for students or for teenagers, and let's rip them away from their parents, the ones who are really the primary spiritual influences. And let's provide programs to keep our kids safe. And let's hire specialists, professionals, and we'll call them youth workers. Actually, let's call them youth pastors, because then it sounds more professional, but they're really just, glorified teenagers. And we'll go from there. The experiment has gone, and I have to be honest here, this is my own opinion, so maybe I'm way off. And you can be offended by my comments, and that's fine. I believe the experiment of youth ministry has gone way wrong. And it is, to some degree, a huge, huge, huge lack of success. Because if we define success by how many kids continue on in their faith and stay connected to the church and involved, man, thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids in the last 50 years, including now, have walked away from the church, and more importantly, I believe, are walking away from their faith because of the way that we've set up youth ministry not to be connected or reconnected back to the family. So, in saying all of that, that's kind of the history of where we're at now. Now we're trying to pick up the pieces and figure out what the problem is. But it's amazing that how we continue to run the same programs and think that somehow it's magically going to change everything. And man, it's not. I really don't see it changing. And a lot of guys are coming to the point where they're realizing that youth ministry is in a funk. And we really got to figure out what we're about. So tomorrow what we're going to look at is more, okay, so that's kind of where we're at and what has happened. Now, presently, what do we do? And if we do not change a few things, what are the ramifications, man? What are the results going to be? It is not pretty if we continue to go down the same road. So that's what we're going to look at tomorrow. Hope that sort of primed the pump a little bit. But anyway, I'm going to get to work here. Got a lot of meetings and actually families and parents to meet with today. And looking forward to that. Hope you have a great day and that you had a great weekend. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Talk to you soon. Bye.